So, this story didn't really happen to me, but it happened to one of my friends, which we'll call her by the name of Alex. Alex was living in this pretty big house with her two parents, her mom and dad, and lived with her brother who is at least 2 years older at the time. And this was Alex's first Christmas alone with her boyfriend, as her family had gone to go see her extended family in Norway. So she, living somewhere in the U.S., I believe. I believe it must have been taking place in Montana or something. I don't remember what year this took place, but it might have been happened around 6 years ago. Every time Alex thinks on this story, she does get bad vibes of what would happen to her if she didn't act quickly or whatever. Now, this taken back when her boyfriend had came over for Christmas and the two of them were alone. It was Christmas Eve and all her presents for her boyfriend were already on that her boyfriend got were under the tree, and the same with her parents. Now, the parents were coming back sometime the day after Christmas, so they decided to spend Christmas alone in the house. Now, normally Alex would have gone with her extended family to her family to see her extended family in Norway, but due to the fact that Alex was really sick and she did have some certain reasons such as college and that she couldn't really go. Plus, she wasn't financially stable to do one because of some medical problems and etc. Alex, on the other hand, was spending time with her boyfriend. And keep in mind, she was in at least 25 at the time of this story. So, Alex was with her boyfriend, and they were doing some pretty neat stuff like watching TV. However, her boyfriend ended up hearing tapping on the window outside, and Alex assumed that it might have been maybe just some critters running around or something like that, to which she told her boyfriend that it might have been maybe just some little critters. However, the tapping became more frequent, and this really confused both Alex and her boyfriend. They went out to the front but didn't hear anybody, and this was getting really confusing since they didn't hear anybody. They thought that maybe it could be maybe just one of the teenagers pulling pranks, which was common in the area, but that wasn't really the case. However, though Alex and her boyfriend ended up continuing to go watch TV. However, while they were watching TV, they ended up hearing what seemed to be like noises coming from outside the house. Now, Alex looked outside through the window, but she couldn't really see much due to it being dark. So she assumed that there could have been somebody out there, probably just sneaking around. However, she did say that she had a gun and said that if anyone dares to step in their yard again, they would get shot. Call her, whatever. That's just how she dealt with things around her area. They were living in a pretty secluded area, so it was pretty obvious to what was happening. Alex, however, said to her boyfriend that they should just head to bed as they were pretty tired and that Santa Claus was going to be there. Now, keep in mind, when the two of them were finally asleep, it probably might have been around 1 in the morning where Alex woke up to hearing something like a window sliding open and shut. Now, in her mind, even though she was autistic, she had a feeling that it might have been Santa Claus, so she ended up going outside and heading downstairs to see. However, though, she stopped when she saw that the window to the front door was somewhat open, but no one ever left the door open. Even her parents didn't leave the front window open or whatever. However, she ended up seeing that there was a man, probably about 6 feet tall, and he looked like he had a large axe. Alex went back upstairs, locked her door, and told her boyfriend about it, to which it resulted in them calling 911. When they did call 911, they stayed in the room when they ended up hearing loud banging coming from from the other side. When the police arrive and they enter the house through the window, the man or whoever it was that entered her house was already gone. There was no traces of who he was or whatever, but however, they ended up seeing that there was some slush and snow prints, but they couldn't really identify who it was. This was one Christmas that really shaken up Alex a lot, and now she becomes really paranoid when someone leaves the window open, and whenever anyone's going to be leaving the house and they don't have the window closed, she does get pretty paranoid, so she does have a fear of someone going to be inside her house. This has been still in her mind for a while, and she always thinks of something going on. It always still lingers in her mind to this day, but she has no idea who this man was, and neither did her boyfriend. But what would have happened to her if she had been spotted by that man and didn't call 911? Now, this happened to a neighbor of mine back in 2015, and it was around Christmas time. She happened to be living in my old neighborhood that I used to live there before I moved back in 2019 up north. Now, the neighbor of mine that this happened to, her name, which we'll call her by the name Charlotte. Now, Charlotte was pretty much in her sophomore year of high school, and she lived in a pretty decent neighborhood. She, of course, was living with her aunt and uncle due to the fact that both her parents were not financially stable due to them being on drugs and etc. She ended up having to live with her aunt and uncle, who were very willing to take her in until she can get her own stuff together and etc. However, though, one of the nights was obviously something that she honestly didn't really expect to happen. Now, she had a stalker at the time, but this was just during around the time of the holidays. However, let's start off with the beginning of the last week of school before the Christmas break. On Monday, she met this really cute guy who happened to be going to the same school as her. He introduced himself as Tom, and Tom seemed to be pretty chill with Charlotte. They both chatted and stuff, and he somehow happened to be in the last class of the day, which was science with her. Obviously, Charlotte thought that maybe Tom was a really cool guy and started chatting with him more. However, she didn't really expect what this Tom guy had in store. But let's fast forward to Tuesday. Tuesday, Tom started to touch her in certain places. Not really inappropriate touching like most people would think, but touching her without consent. Basically, he touched her shoulders, he touched her hand. And this honestly had made Charlotte really uncomfortable since she barely knew him. However, she asked him politely to stop touching her without her consent, but Tom didn't seem to be bothered or didn't seem to give a crap. He ended up just scoffing at her and just moving on. It was obviously that there was a red flag about going on with Tom, so Charlotte decided to try to ignore him. However, by Wednesday, he had somehow found her whole classroom schedule and started stalking her throughout the school. Obviously, she had made a report about this to her parents, and they did contact the school about Tom's behavior, and the school said they would keep an eye on Tom until further notice. However, though, that was on Tuesday. Wednesday was when things got really creepy. Tom guy seems to be following Charlotte everywhere she went. He somehow found out where her house address was lit up with all the Christmas lights. Now, of course, Charlotte didn't really pay much attention to Tom, as she had not seen him on Thursday, which happened to be on the second last day of school. She always wondered what happened to Tom since Tom was not at school, thinking that maybe he did get suspended or something. But it doesn't end there, though. It gets really messed up. when she ended up going back to her classroom schedule the way he was doing, she thought that maybe he gave up. However, she had Friday off as she was going to her aunt, going to her extended family's Christmas party. However, this is when it got really weird. The day before Christmas was Christmas Eve. Tom ended up deciding to do some really sneaky ideas. When Charlotte woke up and she checked the mailbox, she saw that there was a Christmas card sent to Charlotte from Tom. Now, Charlotte obviously didn't open it and threw it in the garbage. But then this is when it got weird. Almost every few hours during Christmas Eve, Tom would bring her some gifts, such as a present of certain stuff that she didn't want to open. She obviously found this very suspicious and told her aunt and uncle about it. Her aunt and uncle, along with her mom and dad, who came over to her house to spend Christmas, obviously knew something was really weird going on. However, though, Charlotte ended up saying that if Tom didn't stop, she would report this to the cops. However, though, it was some time before, when Charlotte was going to bed, when she spotted Tom standing in front of her lawn, all lit up with the Christmas lights. Charlotte immediately got her aunt and uncle, and her uncle started yelling and cussing at Tom, telling him to get off the property. Police were called, but Tom was nowhere to be found, and they didn't get any updates or reports on this Tom guy. Of course, the school was forewarned about this situation after the holidays. So when Charlotte came back to school, she never saw Tom again. It was really creepy that Tom was stalking her, even during the holidays and even before school let out for the holidays. She is now an adult, and she's doing quite well, but she's never heard of Tom again, and she's never ever heard about Tom again, but she doesn't really know or care about what happens to him next, as she never got any reports from the police update about it. She liked to think that Tom had went to prison or something, but I guess that's the answer that we're never going to know. Now, this actually happened about maybe a few years ago. This actually happened to my friend named Caden. Caden was around his sophomore year in college when this happened, and this was around the time when he was off for the Christmas break from college. He was really excited for Christmas as he was able to be away from his family. Well, not his, family, but pretty much away from family in college. Although he did miss being in college, but he did get a nice week off from college. Well, 2 weeks to be exact, so he can spend time with his family. Although he did pass through his exams no problem, there was this one Christmas that really got him really overwhelmed. Now, to keep in mind, Caden was in sophomore year, in his freshman year or sophomore year in college, so he was pretty much a heavy sleeper. He went to sleep at about 9:30 p.m. as his parents told him that Santa Claus would be coming if he was asleep. So, anyways, with that being said, he ended up doing what his parents told him to do, and he headed off to bed. However, though, this is when things got really freaky. I think about Christmas Eve when he went to bed, but woke up on Christmas Day morning around 1:30 in the morning. He didn't really know why he woke up, but he ended up waking up to see that there was someone in the bedroom. Obviously, Caden thought in his mind, even though he had autism, so I'm thinking it might have been Santa Claus, but he wore nothing that resembled Santa. This figure happened to be wearing all black, and he had no idea how he got in the house. He was going to consider figuring out from his mom or something, but decided against it, fearing that he'd wake them up, as his parents were pretty grumpy when they were awoken. However, this man seemed, or whoever it was staring at Caden and was making a really creepy smile. Caden ended up going over to his parents as soon as it started cackling uncontrollably, like someone from a mental asylum. He ended up bolting out of the bedroom and ended up going to see his parents and told them about someone in the bedroom. They ended up looking and searching the whole bedroom and found that there was no one in there. Caden had no idea how this figure managed to get into the bedroom or whatever, but seeing that all the windows and doors were locked, there was no way that this figure was able to get in. Caden had no idea if it was paranormal or if he suffered from sleep paralysis at that time. Still to this day, this really confuses Caden, and he still does not know much about sleep paralysis. Although today he does know now, but he was very confused at the time when this happened. It was not really the type of story to make you jump out of your pants, but it was definitely something that happened to him on Christmas Day in the morning, and it honestly really confused him as to why it happened. I guess some things comes to show that everything happens unexpectedly, and sometimes we don't even know when it will happen.